Tēnei te ara kei runga te ara orangi e tū nei te ara o papa e takoto nei. Tēnei te ara orangi rā ko papa e takoto nei. Kia ra rau te tapu au tāne ki raro, nau mai te pō, tēnei te aoti hei mauri ora. Nō reire mihi kaua ke ana kia tātou e hui hui nei, me o tātou mate, taki hinga hinga ana, mai anō mai anō. Ko rea whakaingoa tia i te toko maha, kei mahue i au te tehi. Engari rātou kia rātou, tātou kia tātou. Māori in governance. I'm not sure why I was asked to come and talk to you about this subject, since I'm a judge. Maybe it's to tell you how you can stay out of jail and still make a buck. But anyway, this thing is to inspire, grow, celebrate, and disrupt, I'm told, and disrupt. And it made me think, well, inspire who? Grow what? Celebrate what? And what are you going to break? These are really good questions. And I thought I would add a bit of vinegar to the discussion by, in addition to those words, adding caution. Hold to account on some issues that are very visible to me and probably somewhat visible to you. Kei ware ware. Kei ware ware. So at least the start of this is going to be Grumpy Joe taking you down. I hope by the end of it you'll get Happy Joe taking you back up, but that depends on how it goes. Memory is important. History is important. We're in 2022, 82 years after the Treaty of Waitangi. And a lot of shit happened over those 182 years, despite which you're here, and I'm where I am. 95% of the land gone. All of the tino rangatiratanga gone. 95% of the reo gone. By the beginning of this so-called Renaissance that we're here going rah-rah about a bit, because, you know, who would have known when I was a teenager that there would be a hui for Māoris about being on boards, other than surfboards, parole boards. So when we started this process of renewal and reconstruction in the 80s, it's hard to think how much worse things could have been. I saw some numbers that really struck me when I saw them. Do you know, 7% of Māori boys born in the 1970s were taken by oranga tamariki. Do you realise how many boys that is? So those boys under 15 were the largest group of boys in the history of our race. Never been bigger. 7% of them went to boys' homes. And you know what? 85% of them went straight to jail. Do not collect $200. And that gets us to 10,000 inmates in New Zealand jails in the 2010s, 52% of whom are Māori, on an ongoing basis, which means, 5,500 odd prisoners who are Māori, men, much bigger proportion, although smaller absolute number of women, but much bigger proportion of Māori women in women's prisons. But because of the churn, it's hard to think of an individual whānau in the country that has been unaffected by the incarceration of that generation. I can certainly say so in my case, as I've got 3 siblings who did multiple lags. And hell, I'm a judge. Not one whānau unaffected by the mincer we call the criminal justice system, all in our time, right? So, that's why I say, let's caution, let's hold ourselves to account, because that mincer is still running. What happened over that 182 years was the Māori world, Te Ao Māori, was almost completely destroyed. Its economic base, its cohesion, cultural and social, and its political core, almost completely destroyed. And the coloniser said, you know what, that's good for you, because your tribalism has been holding you back. Get with individualism, man. Get a job in Otara, Manukau, Porirua, the car factories, the freezing works. Chase the Kiwi dream, that's your future. Oh, and English. Don't worry about that Māori stuff. That's just, that's not modernity. I'm sorry, but who you are just doesn't work in 20th century Aotearoa. You're going to have to change. And they said it like that, right? I just want to remind you how much shit your parents had to put up with. The destruction of their self-belief, their confidence, their sense of self, their self-sense of beauty, of power, all gone. Because what they were was just not going to work. Well, then we had the treaty settlement process, and even the settlers thought we should try and fix this, because it's been a disaster. Look at those boys in the boys' homes. Look at those gangs. Look at that massive Māori unemployment rate during the economic reconstruction of the mid-1980s. This has not worked well at all. So, the treaty settlement process was kind of an attempt to respond in a moral fashion to the mess that had been created intentionally. In the sense that the crusher did what it did, may not have predicted that it would turn out so badly, but certainly did what it did on purpose. And the judges were very much complicit in that project. So we had a treaty settlement process, there was a fisheries settlement, and this hui is funded by a part of it. I know that because I was the lawyer for the Fisheries Commission at the time. And te ohu whakatupu was, what do we do with the non-tribals? Right? What do we do with the non-tribals? Because the judges were worried that, hell, there's a lot of Māoris not connected to tribes. Damn right. That was the point. So if we give the fish to the tribes, what's going to happen to the non-tribals? Well, what happened is they had a governance hui on the 18th of January 2022. So stuff has changed, right? Stuff has changed. But you see, this hui, this is why I say caution and hold to account, and I'm sorry, this probably sounds really a downer. But this hui is off the back of that destruction, right? Factually. Te ohu whakatupu was created because many, perhaps most Māoris, had become so de-Māorified, they didn't know what their tribes were. So if you handed out all the loot to iwi, a bunch of Māoris were going to miss out. Were it not for that, you wouldn't be here, at least Te Ohu Whakatipu wouldn't be funding you here. So let's remember that. We sit on top. We, the successful ones, that's us. We, the winners, that's us, sit on top of a landfill of destruction. Now, you know, that I know that sounds cruel, but I'm a judge, so I see it. Every day I see that train wreck grinding its way slowly in a head-on collision with modernity. Every day. And there is Māori blood at the point of impact, flowing and flowing and flowing. Now, we can feel positive about the fact that we're doing positive things, building economies, making New Zealand feel much better about itself, finding ways of thinking about our relationship to the planet that doesn't involve property rights, our relationship with each other that doesn't involve contract, but kaitiakitanga, whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, all of those things our old people just, didn't even think about. They're so central and essential to who they were. The old chiefs visited London in the early 19th century. They were appalled at what they saw. Not amazed, appalled. There were all these people who must have been the relations of those other white people in the streets starving. Like, what's the matter with this tribe? Shit. Well, of course, that's what happened here. Because those values took over, right? Now I'm running out of time. So, the treaty settlement process is developing, proceeding, massively undercapitalised. When you're settling at 3% of the loss, you're going to struggle to reverse the process that settlement process was supposed to reverse. It's easy, do the maths. About settlements at about $3,000 per head in 1992. Hey, you're the business people. What's the income on that? And then you work out how much money you've got to touch the lives of your people, who've forgotten who they are. But we can hold one of these things. So, that's only ever going to be part of the answer, because it ain't enough. The government is browning, politically, bureaucratically, even judicially. And that's good. That's great, actually. That's going to help shore up the fact that the capital base for this reconstruction, for us to get over the hangover of 182 years, is not enough. But of course, where do they get those Māoris from? The tribes. And then the tribes haven't got them. So I mean, you get this cycle. The bureaucracy all Māoris up, and the iwi lose them. I know that's it's a catch-22, but it's a reality. I've seen it happen time and time again. But what I'm most worried about, and this was my point, I'm witnessing a bifurcation in the Māori world. Not a bifurcation between Pākehā and Māori, a bifurcation in the Māori world. Between those of you who are brilliantly pursuing positive business and policy-based things, and our relations, who are still, Māori men, 7 times more likely to go to jail than non-Māori. 7 times. That's not, and that's a stubborn number. It's been that number for 20 or 30 years. And if you're a woman, 11. So I'm worried that all of this brilliant success, which I thoroughly and utterly support. I used to be a business person myself. I had a law firm. Might forget itself. We might become like some people that those chiefs saw. What Why aren't those people, what are they doing with their relations? They don't even know who they are. Those old chiefs would say, what the hell is going on? See, if Māori values are so important, what happened to whanaungatanga? Because whanaungatanga says, if my relation comes to my house, they don't need to ask. In fact, they never bloody do. Just walk in, we're here for a while, uncle. Because that's what we used to do when we were kids. Oh, does that shut up? So my challenge to you on governance is to think about the big game you're playing here. You're in your part, a crucial, irreplaceable part of the reconstruction of our people. That's all, right? Everything else, in my view, is noise. If you're not engaged in that project, you're part of the problem. I don't care what colour you are. And I don't care how many Māori words you've got on your annual report. If you're not engaged actively, consciously, and vigorously in the reconstruction of our people, whether it's tribal, community-based, language-based, culture-based, you're the problem, not the solution. And celebrate that, right? Build a vision in which that's at the centre. I don't care about shareholder value. I don't care. I wouldn't say that if, you're a defendant in a case. I don't care about the division between capital and labour. I don't care. All I care about is whether Ngāti Pūkenga mai iwi will still exist in 200 years, still speak their language, still run their marae, and be economically self-sufficient and sustainable. That's all I care about. And the point we're at is, if I were a betting man, I would bet no. Despite all of this, I would bet we'll fail. Because all the pressure is against us. That's why it's so important you do this with intention. Right? Because chances are, 200 years from now, my language will be dead. And there'll be a few people living on our ancestral land in Manaia, but the real action will be somewhere else, if Manaia is not underwater. We've got something beautiful to give to the world. Something, and I've seen it, I've dealt with people from all over the world. I can tell you what we have is something magical and beautiful. And they just swallow it up. But we've first got to gift it to ourselves. Make ourselves strong. Be the example that we must be as a people. And then go out there and kick their ass. Tēnā tātou.
Taito, ai e hine.